Okay, let's keep going. In this lesson, we are going to cover enabling two-factor authentication, and we will start by installing the necessary dependencies. We are going to install two npm packages. The first one is node2fa, which is the package we are going to use to generate the two-factor authentication secrets and also verify the generated authentication code. Then the second one is QR code, which will be used to generate a QR code that users can scan in order to enable two-factor authentication. Next, we are going to define the route. We are going to define two routes. The first one is going to be a get route that will be used to display the page containing the QR code and an input field for entering the authentication code. The route is going to be two-factor auth, and it will be handled by a two-factor authentication controller, and specifically by a create method on the controller. Then the other one is going to be a post route with the same URI, but this time it's going to call the store method. Let's create the controller. Make controller. Let's move the controller inside the auth directory and also update the route. I'm going to create a route group. Then I'll set the namespace to be app controllers http, then the auth directory. Then I'm going to move this inside the group. Then I can also set this as the prefix of the group. Since this is now the prefix of the group, we can get rid of it and use the / here, same as here also. Then lastly, we need to apply the auth middleware, because whatever that needs to be done inside this group needs to be done by an authenticated user. Let's head back to the controller and create the first method. I'm going to get auth, response, and view from the context. Like I mentioned earlier, this method will be the one responsible for rendering the view to display the page where user can scan the QR code. So what we want to do in this method is generate the two-factor authentication secret code as well as the QR code. To keep this controller lean and straightforward, I'm going to create a service class which will contain the bulk of the work. So inside the app directory, I'm going to create a new services directory. Then inside it, I'll create the service class, which I'm going to call two-factor authenticator. Then we're going to export an instance of the class. Then let's add the first method, which I'm going to call generate secret, and it's going to accept the user object. Like I said earlier, we're going to be using the node2fa package to generate the secret key. So let's pull it in. Then we can use the package and call the generate secret method on it. The generate secret method accepts an optional argument, which is an object, which you can use to specify the name of the app that the secret is being generated for. In our case, we're just going to call it demo, and the account the secret is for, which will be the user email. Since you're only using the user email, let's accept just the email and not the whole user object. So email, which will be a string, then we can update this as well. The method is going to return an object containing a secret, a URI, and a QR code. So I'm going to return everything. Next, let's create the method to generate the QR code. The method is going to accept the URI that is generated from here, and is going to return a string. Here, we'll be making use of the QR code package, so we need to first import it. Also, let's install the types for this package. Then we can make use of the package. As you can see, there are different ways we can create QR code using this package. But for this course, we'll be making use of the toDataURL method. Then we'll pass to it the URI gotten from the generate secret method. The method is an async method, so we need to await it. Or better still, just return it. Now we have the two methods we need for now. Let's head back to the controller and make use of them. First, we are going to import the two-factor authenticator, then call the generate secret method. Then we'll pass to it the user email. First, let me save the authenticated user in a user variable auth user. Then I can get the email from the user object. Then from here, we can get the secret and the URI Then we are going to save the secret key for the user. Two-factor secret. Then we'll set it to the generated secret. Then we persist it to the database. Then we can generate the QR code. Await two-factor authenticator, generate QR code. Then we pass the URI. Lastly, we can render a view, which is going to be inside a settings directory, and the name of the view is going to be two-factor auth. Then we're going to pass the QR code to the view. Let's get rid of the response object because we're not using it. Now let's create this. And let's copy the content of the settings page to start with. Then we can say set up two-factor authentication. Then we are going to display the QR code. In addition to displaying the QR code, we are also going to display the two-factor authentication secret in case users can't scan the QR code, so they can enter the secret key instead. And we can get the secret from the user object or user two-factor secret. I'm going to add some styles to this. First, we set the background to be gray 100 and the text to be gray 500. Then give it a font of medium. Then we'll make it round and add some padding. I'm going to wrap everything inside a div so that I can add some vertical space between them. Space Y4. And I'm going to set the text to be small. Lastly, we are going to have a form for the authentication code. The action will be to the store method. First, let's add the CSRF token field, and then the field to enter the authentication code. I'm going to give it a name of token and add some classes to it. First, we are going to make it block. Then we'll add some horizontal and vertical padding. Then a border. I will set the border color to be gray 300. Then we will make it rounded and also add a shadow. Then we'll set the placeholder text color to be gray 400. Then on focus, we're going to set the outline to none. Then on focus again, we are going to set the ring to be gray 500. Then lastly, on focus again, we're going to set the border to be gray 500 also. Also, let's set the text to be small. Then I'm going to set the placeholder to be 6-digit authentication code. Then I'll set the mini length to be 6 as well as the max length. Let's bring each of the attributes to their individual line. Then lastly, we're going to make the field required. Then we'll have a button to submit the form. The button is going to say enable, and let's give it some classes. First, we're going to give it some padding. Then we'll set the border to be transparent and make it rounded. Then we'll add some shadow and set the text to be small and the font weight to medium. Then we're going to set the text color to be white and the background to be gray 700. And on over, we're going to set the background to be gray 600. Then on focus, we'll set the outline to be null. Then on focus again, we'll set the ring to be 2 and also ring offset 2. Then lastly, on focus, we're going to set the ring color to be gray 700. Again, let's bring each of them to their individual line. Next, let's update the settings page to include a link that will take us to this page. This is going to point to the create method on the two-factor authentication controller. Then the test is going to be enable two-factor authentication. And I'm going to add some classes, which I'll copy from the enable button. Before we check this out in the browser, let's update the route prefix to include settings. Now let's head over to the browser. This is the button to enable two-factor authentication. And if I click on it, we should go to the two-factor authentication setup page. As you can see, we have the QR code, which you can scan, and also the secret, which you can type in case we are unable to scan the QR code. And also we have the input field to enter the authentication code. Next, let's add the logic to process the form. We are going to create a store method, and I'm going to get the request of session and the response from the context. First, we are going to ensure that the authentication token is supplied. Then we are going to verify the token to ensure that it is a valid authentication token. If not, request impute. That is, if the token field is not supplied. Or for the token verification, we are going to do that inside the two-factor authenticator service class. And we're going to call it verify token. And it's going to accept the two-factor secret, which will be a string, and also the token that we want to verify, which again is going to be a string. And this is going to return a boolean. And to perform the verification, we are going to use the two-factor package. Then we call the verify token on it, which accepts the secret and also the token. Then we can simply cast this to boolean and return it. Now we can make use of the method here, two-factor authenticator verify token. We can get the secret from the auth, then the token. To avoid repetitions, I'm going to save these inside the dedicated variables. So I'm going to call this token, then secret, auth user two-factor secret. Then we can just make use of the token here and here, and the secret here also. This has to be a string and not string or null. And at this point, we know that the user two-factor secret is indeed a string. So I'm going to set it as a string. And here we want to do the inverse of this. That is, if we cannot verify the token. Also, to be on the safer side, let's check that the two-factor secret has been set. If not secret, or if not token, or if we cannot verify the token, then we are going to display an appropriate message. I'm going to be flashing the message to the session. I am doing this because I already have a way to undo that inside the app layout. Then we are going to redirect back to the page. But if all this checks out, we are going to update the two-factor confirmed ads field on the user object. So await auth user merge. Then once to update the two-factor confirmed ads field and set it to the current timestamp. And for that, we are going to use logzone. So let's import it. Import from logzone. And we're going to import date time. Then we can make use of it by calling the now method, which will set the two-factor confirmed at field to the current timestamp. Then we'll persist it to the database. Then lastly, we're going to flash a success message and redirect to the settings page. Let's head over to the browser and test this out. First, I'm going to try entering a wrong code. And as expected, we got the appropriate message. Now I'm going to scan the code using my authenticator app. And I'm going to enter the generated authentication token. And as expected, I am redirected to the settings page with a successful message. And if we check the database, we should see that not just the secret has been set, but also the confirmed ads field. So that is how to enable two-factor authentication. In the next lesson, we are going to enforce it for logging in.